Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Kai Crowe-Getty, and you're watching The Break It Down Show. And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Kai Crowe-Getty is from a band called Lord Nelson. We're going to talk about that. We were just talking off mic about playing the guitar and what it means. And I wanted to bring this back up because obviously you know how to play the guitar. When I'm watching Willie Nelson play a D chord up and down the neck of the guitar and just making 1,000 sounds and emotions come out of it. When I'm watching Chris Thomas King play the blues on these things, he's dropping, I think, a song a week right now. And you see him just, it's really remarkable to look at their efficiency and the clarity and the ideas that come out of someone who's just been doing it for 50 years, 40 years, whatever it's going to be.
I learned early on from my father, who's an artist, and he makes pottery. And so someone would say, how long did it take you to make this cup? And he would say, it took me 30 years. Right. And so that was sort of, the early with that, him hammering it home. But, that sort of, there's not a lot of shortcuts to mastery or to experience. And when you're young and starting out whatever career, like, man, you're hunting that and you want that and you're striving hard. And then you get to that point, you realize, like, man, just gotta do it. Yeah. And then, so it feels second nature.
When I was listening to Lord Nelson, I heard some influences, and this is kind of along the same line, that mastery thing, right? Like you have to go, if you want to learn how to paint the best paintings in the world, you go to the Louvre and you try to paint every painting in the Louvre, and you become great at copying what other people do and be inspired by and then you start to make your own choices. So same thing with guitar or writing songs, everything else. I definitely hear some U2 influence in what you guys do. And maybe that's a subordinate influence to something that influenced you that came after U2. But I hear those kind of tones and shapes, especially from the guitar. How much of that is there? And then where else do you draw inspiration from?
That's interesting. I love this because I love hearing what people find in the music and like what they pick out of it. Because I think we grew up on classic rock and roll. And so, but I'm constantly listening to new artists and inspired by that. So I think I just try to stay open to whatever's swirling around, and we sort of, hunt and peck and take ideas where we can. I remember, I'll say Rattle and Hum was one of like the first concert films I saw. I wouldn't like musically, U2 hasn't been as present in things I've done, I'd say, but I think that early on, I remember that film. My first concert was Tom Petty, and so I think Tom Petty's been a huge influence. Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, the band, and the band has sort of been the template for how Lord Nelson's been. We have different singers, different writers. We try to have sort of that Band of Brothers atmosphere.
You are 100% right about the band. You definitely hear that aspect and the changing of the lead singer and the writing duties. That for sure is on the money. When you're trying to find your voice on an instrument, you are looking at whatever it is, and there is, some of this and there's some of that, but some of what you do is by design. I would imagine, like, I'm not going to do these things. What are things that you remove from your playing because you don't want to be, I don't know, I don't want to be Brian May. I want to be, more of this, less of that kind of thing.
I think I'm not encumbered by being a virtuoso by any means. So that I've never got to the point where I've gotten so good at something that I decide I don't want this or that voice. I think for me, it's more so trying to take, this is 4-chord rock and roll, basically. You're not reinventing the wheel. So how do you bring something that's distinctly your own voice, or talking or singing about something that's close to your heart, and like, how do you bring that into the conversation? And so I think by trial and error, you find a lot of things that just don't feel natural. And so I think that's a big thing to me. Like, if I'm trying to do something that doesn't feel natural, that doesn't feel like it's me, it's good to be out of your element, out of your comfort zone. But if I'm doing a song, we get into it, it's like, man, this just feels weird. It's like, following those instincts and knowing when to push through that it might take you to a cool new place, or whether you're just traveling a place that's just not a good fit for you.
How much of that do you guys do live when you're rehearsing in your rehearsal space, or is your job to come prepared already?
We it's funny because we're a band who hardly ever rehearsed. We play, 2-hour shows without a set list. And that was sort of, we're at that point pre-COVID and all that. So we're sort of fits and starts getting back to that routine. So it's been great to rehearse again now and sort of rediscover songs that we used to play for a long time and haven't touched in a couple years. And so now it's we're definitely enjoying playing with things in a new light, because things that may have been locked in for years are now we're sort of like, okay, well, let's try this thing a little different. What if we add this rhythm here? So it's sort of giving all of our songs a new lease, which has been really fun.
One of the things I've enjoyed as I've gotten older and, been into music for a long time is as an artist evolves the song with time, whether they add new context or a new line or just something that shows wisdom. And one of my favorite things to use as an example is on Live from Daryl's House. They had, God dang it, I can't think of his name. The lead singer from Matchbox 20 is
Rob Thomas.
Rob Thomas, yeah. He's like, I want to do Kisses on my list, but I want to do it in like an E minor.
Ooh.
And so it's more, you see, you get it.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, it changes the song completely because it becomes past tense and reflective. And oh my God, there's so many times when you can do things like this. Like I'll use U2 as an example again. There's a line in U2 and So Cruel where an older person would, instead of pointing and saying, "You're so cruel," you would at some point turn it and be like, "I was so cruel," because you realize in with age. Do you dig that kind of thing? Like when you get to, and not necessarily because you're old, but just in some way, a song becomes bigger. "Wind Beneath My Wings" is a completely different song now because it is now associated with Princess Diana or Lady Diana dying.
Yeah, I think that what immediately comes to mind is one of my favorite writers, John Prine, "Hello in There," and hearing that song as a young person, it doesn't have the same resonance. And then Hayes Carl is another great songwriter, put out a record about someone with dementia, one of his tracks off it, and it's haunting. And if you've know people as you get older, as people in your life you care about who get older, and the way that impacts everything, that when you're as a young person, it's everything's in front of you, nothing matters, it's all it's a different respect towards mortality. So I think that "Hello in There," that I heard that again recently. A friend played it at an open mic and it just floored me. It's one that I've always loved, but it just hit in a whole new way after a year of, I don't know, lots of crazy stuff going on and personal stuff. So it's I think you're right. And I think that's what I love about songs is they can be a living document. It's a matter, how you reinterpret them, whether it's artists, whether it's just hearing the same recording years later, whether it's a band that's, tired of playing the same song the same way every night and they like to just like change it up and make it interesting for themselves and for the audience who've heard it a bunch. So I love that about music, that it's not a photograph.
I love it. That's such it's not a photograph, right? Like, it really isn't. And there is time in your artistic expression to evolve something and play it the original way. That's fine. But to really be able to do that, a song that breaks me up every single time I hear it. And it's just because it so perfectly captures everything about it. And so Toby Keith wrote this song about his friend Wayman Tisdale. They're both from Oklahoma and everything else. And Wayman was a basketball player, NBA player for years and years and years, but also was a fantastic bass player in his own right. And he died. And Toby writes this song, and it's just, oh my God, it just is so beautiful because it's for his friend. And there's like this hilarious lines in it, because it's not always serious and everything, but it hits you. How much he loves this guy. And it's just, it is a perfect song. It's not a hit at all, but there's a lyric from it. So play your upside down, left-handed, backwards bass guitar. And it's just like you get a line like that. That's so specific to Wayman and his relationship. You just know how much he loves this dude. And it always wells me up every time I hear it.
Yeah, I think writing personal songs about, like, I find it really hard to write. I'm not an autobiographical writer, but all my songs have some element or some, something I'll find to develop. But I think it's really hard to, I just get too emotionally invested. And like, I realize I'm not great as a writer when I'm just trying to write about like, someone who passed or someone who's having a really hard time in my life or something like that. And so I have to like take a breath and find a different way to approach it. So I think songs like that, it's really remarkable when a writer can zero in so concisely on someone close to them and make it universal, which is what we all come to music for, I think.
Is it easier to write a song rather than a good song? I mean, like I've got this song on my head I've been kind of working on for a while, and I'm not a songwriter. I just want to do it for the exercise of doing it. Maybe someone someday will play it out loud somewhere, but that's not the point. But I'm finding it hard. Like I can go write a, 3-verse, chorus song that is as vapid as any kind of song on the radio, and I can do it pretty good because I can rhyme and I know the basic premise, right? But to write a good song, man, it's taking me months, honestly, to get this thing where I'm like, now it's a good song. I don't know how to do it reliably. Is it harder to write a good song than just a dumb old song?
I would say, I think writing a bad song is hard. Like, I think it's like doing anything. And I think it's also like how picky you are. And I think I'm very picky. So like most of the stuff I write, no one ever hears. And my phone, like most people, is full of terrible demos and me singing in the car with ideas for stuff that never gets flushed out. But no, I think it's like once if you get the formula, if you get the idea, like you can definitely churn stuff out. But I think like you said it, like it is hard. It's hard to write anything, and to write a good song, the one that like, because I'm sure like most creatives, I have the thing where I'm never really satisfied with what I've done, and that like there's like maybe 2 or 3 songs I've written that I'm like, okay, I got that one, and most of them I'm just, what's next? Like I want to get another shot at something. So I'm always just thinking down the road. So I guess that's a long-winded way, but I think writing songs is hard, and the more you do it, and like that's the thing, like you're saying, you get the chords, the rhyme scheme, the verse, like you just keep doing that, and then when you've got something that's good and like it hits you differently than just like, oh, I was managed to make this couplet work. Like there's one thing like you're solving a puzzle versus like, oh, this is cool, I want to show some people at some point.
And just to talk about this process that I'm going through, and maybe there'll be something that relates to you. That's why I'm bringing it up. But I know so many musicians, and people who write songs for a living, and I don't want to be like, I wrote the song, and then they look at it and be like, Jesus Christ. I know they're not going to do that, but I want to live up to what they do. Like I really pour my heart and soul into this thing. And again, I think Little Wing is 70 words long, right? I mean, that's amazing when you think like in 70 words, he does this thing. And it's not just the guitar playing with Jimi Hendrix. It's the song, the words too, like If 6 Was 9 and all these really crazy concepts. So, I have a little bit of like, I owe it to these people that I know, especially if I'm going to show it to them, that I've taken time, probably not months. They wouldn't expect that, but it's really important to me to get this right. You write in a band of people that write songs.
It's funny you brought up the Little Wing. I was just hearing, I forget now who, but they were talking about the Keith Whitley tune. Was it When You Say Nothing at All, which is a 12-line song. And so they were talking about good 12-line songs, and it's just so crazy when you think about it. This, verse, chorus, verse, and then you repeat the chorus, and there's a break in there, but it's so simple. But these songs like that the brevity, and that's, I think, as a young writer, my inclination, I grew up listening to Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and guys like that, and you just have so many things you want to say without quite having the focus, I found. And the older I get, the less words I have in my songs, because I'm just trying to be way more economical and try to get to the point with more clarity, and a line like an upside down left-handed bass, like that does so much work for you that would take 12 other lines to get you there, So I think like that's a lesson I keep learning from John Prine, is just say that with less words. And that's like, okay, how do I figure this out? But and that's something that
words back in. You can always add another verse. You're like, oh my gosh, this is gold. But can you do it in that many words? Yeah.
And especially like, we're not a jam band. Like we jam, we do have freedom of songs and do different stuff. But like our music's song based. And so for me, like the song needs to work, and you don't want to bore people. Like I don't want to do like 7-verse opuses. I'm not Bob Dylan. I'm not that verbose. And so it's a matter of keeping people locked in, getting your point across as you want to efficiently, and get out while you can.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said for that, right? It's doing your job as a band as well, not just a bandmate, but yeah, like the people that go to the Cool Breeze, you guys be playing here pretty soon, or Gulf Breeze in Florida. They're there to hear you guys play. I want to stick for a minute on short songs, because when you said that, you reminded me of Waylon Jennings' song Storms Never Pass. And if there's a guy that writes short songs, it's Waylon. That song has a total of, I'm looking right now on Word, 124 words. It is the chorus 3 times and 1 verse. And
don't bore us, get to the chorus, man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's and so most of the words are the same words. He's literally written like a 30-word song, just repeated the chorus 3 times. But I'll tell you what, that song, I don't know if you know Storms Never Pass, or Storms.
Yeah.
Storms Never Last. It's a hell of a song. It's super simple, And
it's like you said, you keep finding these like songs by your heroes that are just so great. When you sit down and look at it, like, man, I don't need to stress about writing like 2 more verses or whatever. Like, if you got a good hook, don't overthink it. Just make it work. So
how much ownership do you take? I'm sorry. Yeah. No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
How much ownership do you take of a song when you guys are writing, in the band? I mean, are you coming with a complete idea? Are you compelled to give things up? I mean, is the song? I mean, obviously the song's better once it's been wood shopped through. But how precious do you, as a band, each mate, how precious do you make your songs?
I think early on it was definitely, there's a lot of that, but then you learn to trust each other more. And so I'd say, when I come to this, I know the band well enough. I've been doing this long time, so that I kind of can hear in my head when I'm writing something, kind of where everyone's going to go, but I leave enough room for surprises. So I'll have the lyrics and the melody and the chord structure. I'll have I could play it on acoustic guitar basically, and you can hear the bones of it. And then I love seeing where the rest of my bandmates will take it, because I try not to. There are very few songs where I'm like, man, I just hear this thing, I want this. But most of the time, I know their instincts and I trust them, and it's part of the fun of exploration. Like, someone will come up with a cool hook or a cool groove that I hadn't heard before that makes the song better. So I think now there's enough trust and and creative expression and commonalities and joy in bringing that to life together. But we don't do a lot of like sitting in a room with notepads out and writing collectively. I think I would love to, I wish I worked in that way more, but for me, I'm an insular writer. I like to just sort of go off on my own and work through something till I get it figured out, then bring it back to the group.
Yeah. Did you watch the Beatles documentary?
Oh yeah.
Here's what I took, and just riff off of where I'm going with this. The end. The band is not going to make it through this time, and you just see this fountain of ideas just rocketing out of Paul McCartney's mouth. Like, he just cannot stop, and I understand, like, he hasn't stopped in 50 plus years. He just cannot stop, and so I can see why you're in a band. You're George Harrison. You're like, Jesus Christ, I've got a triple album in me right now. If you would just, can we please, And so, what did you think about that in general? Not just the Paul McCartney thing, but just in general. Like, what did you take from their process and their breakup as we watched it happen, but also the love the band had for each other?
Exactly. I mean, I thought it was fascinating, and when it came out, like, God, my the amount of text threads I was on with other musicians, everyone, whether you're a Beatles fan or not, or just a passing fan, but I think all musicians can relate to that experience, and anyone in a creative environment. But for me, it's like the first episode, you're like, God, they sound terrible here for half of it. They're just like goofing off and doing joke songs. When they do play, it sounds really rough. Like, this is like one of the greatest bands of their era right now. Yeah. And then suddenly, one of them just opens her mouth and there's a complete, get back happens, and right away it's amazing. That's like you're saying earlier, the years of experience, so they can be goofy as hell that whole time, but in them they have this insane repertoire and encyclopedic melodic knowledge, and it quickly comes together, and they all know each other so well that they just like, okay, I'll snap into this part, do this. But the band dynamics of it, the creative process, and then by the second episode where they're actually all on the same page and really cooking, and just watching the album come to life there, when that amount of talent is focused. But it was a good reminder. It's like, man, the Beatles sounded like crap here, and then now they're making some of the best songs ever in our history. So it was both. Yeah, it was encouraging and insane to witness that.
It is insane to watch. This kernel of an idea become maybe even three somethings. Like this phrase, this sound, this lick, or whatever. Begats an idea that we don't use here. We'll use it, and you're like, oh my god, they were so 9 to 5-ish about their rehearsal time. I don't know if it came across in the movie, but in general, like, we're going to show up at 10, we're going to rehearse until 6, and then we're going to go fuck off and go somewhere else. And then they're like, at the end of the day, there's either a song or damn near a whole song. It was just like every day, which for sure worked for them, but also maybe it didn't work for them. I don't know. It's just, there's so many different ways to do this, right?
Yeah. And everyone finds their own pattern. I think that's part of it. Is like, and it's funny, this discussion we had as a band we're having just the other day. We're sort of planning out our year touring, and we're hoping to record in the winter. I love recording in the winter because it's a quieter period. It's great to sort of shut out the world, go to work. And I think when you're younger, there's this like romanticism of, going to the studio, working late night, and, just like these late night sessions. And I've done those. And the best work is always like 10 to 12 after a couple cups of coffee and everyone's like functioning, and not early morning, but I find like that's like, especially now, the older I get doing this, it's like that's my best hours are like between 10 and 3, and so to maximize that time frame, because the performance side of it, you're geared towards playing at night all the time. So I think it's a very different muscle to work. So yeah, we've been talking about like, there's a couple kids in the band and people have families and this and that. So we were talking about how we record this time, and my buddy brought up my bass player who just had a kid, and he was like, I was reading about Eminem, and someone came to work with him at the studio, and guy showed up at 8:00, and the engineer's like, oh, he's gone. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, he's here 9 to 5. This is a job. He's home with his family after 5:00. Like this is how, if you want to work with him, that's how this goes. And so we had a whole chat about that, about like, how do you treat this like work, but in a very successful and productive way, but still carve out that time for your personal life, which is tricky.
You don't get into a band to have a 9 to 5, right?
Right. It seems so antithetical. Yeah.
You quickly find out that the actual reality is that the boss is still running around in his 70s in tight jeans and athletic because he's taking care of his body for the last 50 years and didn't look. Is he a teetotaler? I can't imagine that that's true. But he also doesn't go out and just get hammered. He's not doing like Pantera, where they're like, not only are we going to get fucked up, we're going to drink this mess called, whatever. And then they would have this suicide thing. They would drink every night.
Yeah.
At some point, it's a business. You've got a business to run.
Yeah. And it's just the night in, night out. Like, I mean, like finding ways this year to take care of myself that I wasn't before, 2020, that like previously it was like, we had a lot of fun. We worked hard, but now it's more about how do I ensure that, my voice is going to be fine every night? Like just basic stuff that I should have been doing years ago, that it took sort of like a little pause in life to be like, oh yeah, how do I take care of my own health so that I can ensure that I'm able to keep doing this longer? Like there's no, we're not going to burn out in our 20s anymore. So it's like, what do you do to keep this train going, to play successfully, to ensure quality shows? And, yeah, man, I've seen plenty of bands who go the other way, and like it's a hell of a lot of fun, but like the drop off is pretty rough.
Yeah, and we are learning now that you can be in a band for the rest of your life. Like this doesn't have to end, and so that means, hey, by the way, it's okay if you do a side project. It's okay if you need to take a break from the band. I mean, you look on Wikipedia. I love looking at the band timelines, and you're like gap. You're like, yeah. This is how you do this. You're still a band. You're just not a band today. Or, hey, come back when you're done raising your kid or whatever it is. We've learned this now because we've seen all these bands not do it or do it well or whatever.
And I think it's like, we've had rotating membership like all bands, and someone was like, yeah, I can't believe like you didn't have the exact same 4 people together when you started. It's like, man, if we were like, the Beatles when they got, or anyone like that, U2, to use your example, it's like, man, if we were all millionaires when we were 23, like think this would be a very different story, but we're not. And that's like, this is a blue collar pursuit, and that's how we approach it. And it's, no one here is getting rich. So how do we do this in a way that, we keep moving forward and making good music and playing good shows and, keep feeling like we're progressing and making better music. But no longer like have that, I'm 21 and I'm willing to sacrifice my entire life. It's like, we can do both these things. You can find a way to have meaningful artistic pursuits and have a family life. Like, it doesn't have to. And like you said, side projects. Like, I encourage everyone in the band has a side project. And at times in the past that would have been an issue, but now it's great. It's like, my guitar player has like a doom metal project that he gets all his like weird stuff out there, which is killer. My drummer plays who's my brother, plays in like an indie rock band and like another country band, and I have like a folk record. My guitar bass player was in like a jam band. So like, but we all realize like, this is a place we come together and this is his own thing, which is great. And then we take time out and people go follow their other things, and it's a nice flowing conversation. It takes a while to get developed.
When you guys are looking at business decisions, does someone specifically own the band, or have you guys been together long enough that you make these things? Because look, you have great looking photos. That ain't free. Maybe it's a friend and they're messing with you, pick the best, but there's still a cost to that, right? Like whether it's free access or whatever. Engineers cost money. All of these things cost money. And then you got like, and there's whatever, 5 of you. I think there's 5 of you guys sitting on stage. Hey, here's $500 for the night plan. You each get $100 in your pocket, but you actually really spend a whole lot more than that. So how do you guys work out the business decisions, and who does someone take the lead on that? Does someone have the sense for that?
Yeah. I mean, I've sort of been doing the business side of it for years now. And it's basically my guys trust me to make good decisions that is in everyone's best interest. And I'm very transparent with everything we do. I'm like, hey, here's what this is. Here's what we owe on this. If we do this, it's going to be this thing. And, we try to be, we try not to take bad shows. We try to be a little more aware of that now. We try to, in the past, you just say yes to everything. Right. So it's, but like you said, it's like photos, engineering, like this record that we just put out, Transmission. My guitarist, Calloway, is an engineer. He did the whole thing. We just rented out a barn basically, and he tracked the whole thing while playing lead guitar and singing on it. And so we did as much in-house as we could for this record, and we were able to save a lot of money that we put towards the rollout, which we hadn't before. And so that was a new thing we learned on this release, was like, okay, instead of putting most of the money into the production of the record, what if we just make a great record we love, but it's not a Hollywood studio record or a Nashville studio record. We put a little more money towards some videos and some photos and some press stuff, and just, and it's been really cool to see how that's worked out. So I think every time we put something out, I learn a little more. But yeah, I'm very cost conscious, and we've never gone, no one's ever lost money on the road touring. So that's been something
that's already really good.
It's something when every time I need a sub to bring in, I'm like, hey man, come out, we'll have a great time, and here's what I can pay you, and it's been great, because in a small town, it can be hard to find other musicians to sit in. So you just have to rely on word of mouth to be like, no, if you go out with Lord Nelson, you're gonna have a great time, you'll make money, that's approach. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing, right? Like you guys you've passed that barrier of, we're going to pay you in beer and a good time. You be like, here's what you're going to make. Like we pay people around here. You have a PR company, these things. It denotes a level of success, because it's easy. We talked to a lot of comedians on the show. We talked to a lot of bands, and it's easy to be fantastically successful at being in a band and yet be podcast. Same thing. My show is so damn successful, except for there are about 8.9 billion people that have never heard of it,
Right.
So it can be like that, where you guys for the rest of your lives do this. And you have this blue collar approach to being in a band, and you make plenty of money. But, if you go to Ohio, you're like, no, I'm really in a band. It's really good. That's
the beauty of things now. Like you were just saying, it's like someone just sent me this article, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was like the 1,000 fans approach, no matter what you do, the podcast, a band, and it was just so simple when they broke it down. Like if you had 1,000 true fans, it would give you $100 a year. Like that's good money, no matter how you look at it. So it's like, you don't have to be the biggest band in the world. You don't have to have the top podcast on iTunes, but like if you have enough people who are invested, who care about the work, you can carve out a place in the world to do your thing and find people. And that's like, man, that's the real metric. Like for us, like playing in town we've never been before, people come up to us, buy our merch, sing the songs they've never heard before, tell us what it meant to them. Like that's why we do this shit. It's like, that's all I care about is connecting with people, especially in places like that. And like our best show ever was in a barn in a cornfield in Iowa. And that's it. It was just wild, man. It's like the things you don't prepare for, the things you spend all your life getting stressed about, or those are never the ones that actually turn out. It's random ones. You're like, oh wow, that one really different. That's cool. So just being open to that, and more these days, and no expectations. So it's it's interesting.
Yeah. It's beautiful what you're describing there too, being a band that can do that kind of a thing. And shoot, there's nothing wrong with playing in a band in the cornfield, because that's how God dang it, who played the drums in the band? I can't think of his name right now.
Levon Helm.
That's how he ended his last few years, was fighting cancer, still just playing. And I bet you if he could talk right now, he's like, that was the sweetest time, because I've done all the big things. Now I'm playing in my backyard barn with my friends, and just we'd all want to, if he could do one more weekend, we'd all want to go to that, and he wouldn't charge everybody $100 with the $40 service charge to buy a ticket and all the other. Nothing wrong with making money playing music, but just that's why he did that, was because he loved music.
And that's what's really like interesting to me, is through putting this record out, I've got to talk to a bunch of different people on podcasts who are just interesting, creative, and engaged. And most of us aren't getting rich doing what we're doing, but it's like, man, you hit the nail on the head there. It's like we'd all be doing this whether or not it's just a matter of scale, right? Like we'd be finding some way to like bang out some songs in the garage, or find interesting ways to connect to people. So I think for us it's just a matter of how do we do this and keep moving forward, but not have the expectations and not put these huge constraints or leverage ourselves to difficult places. Just slow and steady, keep it moving.
Slow and steady, keep it moving. Your guys' home genre, would you say, is it country? Is that fair to say, or do you think it's something different?
Maybe. I mean, I think we can touch on a lot of spots. Like when we started off with we were like Southern rock, I guess. We've been called folk, Americana, country, like somewhere in that world. And like long ago, I could, whatever helps get people in the door, whatever they want to call it. Come on, rock and roll, So I think we can touch a lot of those areas, which is which is weird, because we'll often be like, oh, you guys play like rock and roll. It's like, well, yeah, like I grew up, and this is music I kind of grew up on. So it's weird now. It feels kind of out of time and place in some areas of the country where we play, and some other areas like we just fit right in. So it's cool to travel around and see what other people are doing. But I think we're there's I think like hip hop and country and folk are like the areas where there's lots of great songwriting going on right now. So it's exciting to be somewhere in that world.
You guys really do play American music. I mean, that's really what it is. Like, you're not bound by a genre. You don't have to make, this is a country song. You just make a song, but you manage to capture who we are. And, I think one of the instruments that really does that well, and you guys have a lap steel player in the band, but a lap steel just gives you something that manages to capture. And it's not the only American sounding instrument, but there is something about a lap steel that just puts you in a different frame of mind instantly.
It has like a sentimental quality to it. And and the way our player Dave plays, he doesn't do like fancy Nashville runs, but he adds these like really cool like kind of a color and a feel to things. Like, it's funny, when he first started playing with us, it's like, oh, that's cool. It changes the way something like we were saying earlier, it just changes something we were doing by like shifts it just a little one direction. From what we had before. It can kind of round some edges out. It can add some interesting things. So I think we realized that, like, oh, that's cool. And he plays like blues harp too. So like he can he stays busy on stage, which is great.
I bet. Did you ever play them both at the same time?
I haven't seen that yet. We were joking about it the other night, actually. Well, I'll have to get there.
Because you can't sing him harmonica, but you could do almost anything else and play harmonica. Although I don't know that I know a harmonica playing drummer, but I'm sure that they can do it.
Shoot, yeah. Huh. I'm sure there is. Yeah. That sounds like one of those guys you see on like a street corner. It's a one-man band with like the
yeah. Those guys all play the harmonica and the cymbal.
exactly. Yes. Got it all going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there other instruments that you guys think like, oh man, I really want to get like, can we get Dave to play the squeeze box on this one instead of the lap? Kind of thing. And I mean,
Honestly, it's
box. I don't mean an accordion, you know?
yes, I got you, man. Yeah, that'd be I mean, that's a cool sound for sure. I think our main one, and actually he started picking it up over the last year while we didn't have much going on. He's trying to pick up some organ, which because I think like, you know, we're kind of like a 70s rock country sound, whatever. And I like good organ swells can just add this like nice pad to things. So that's like the one thing we haven't had. We had a guy who played organ for a while and he had to move on. But yeah, I think once Dave gets that to a comfortable place, that'll be a nice transition to add some color here and there to songs.
You guys should definitely go check out lordnelsonband.com. Everything there, tour dates, the bio for the band, all that stuff. There's even some music there that you can go to. And then I don't know where you want folks to go. Spotify is the place where people automatically kind of go, but literally, what is the best place to support you guys? If someone wants to throw you a couple of bucks, do they go to the website and buy a shirt? What do you recommend? You're the businessman.
Yeah, I feel like with all the Spotify questions recently and all the hemming and hawing within the artist community, this band that we opened for, American Aquarium, their frontman BJ put it well. He was saying, you know, you can stream your favorite band, check them out, go to their show, buy a record, buy a ticket, tell them you like their music. The yes and approach, right? It can be, and that's how I've sort of looked at it too. It's it doesn't have to be either or. Like streaming stuff, honestly, it helps us. We don't get much money off it, but it helps us with booking. It helps us with all sorts of different things that most people aren't aware of, and that's just what it is right now. So, and ultimately, it's like I did the same thing. If I'm like, hey, I want to check out this band this weekend, and send a link to my buddy, and like, here's what they sound like. Cool, that sounds great. Let's buy tickets, you know. And that's what we do these days. So I'm all for it if it helps. Because ultimately, like we like playing shows. Whatever gets people to come out and see us. We like to drive around in our van and play rock and roll. So if people are interested, we have records for sale. We have CDs, we have vinyl, we have T-shirts, we have hats, we have all sorts of jazz. But come to a show, check us out, or just stream it online and see what you think. But we're open to anything.
Yeah, it's the and thing, right? Like if you like what people do, how about just get the hell out of your house and go spend. I mean, I don't know what it costs to buy a ticket anytime you guys play, but there are so many things that are less than $30 that you can go out and do. And if you do happen to spend $40 on a ticket, I mean, it's not the end of the world. There's so many things. And there's people like you out there just making incredible music. And it just does something. At least I know it does for me. So it must happen to other people, but it just does something. You just can have a great time. You go out and have a couple of beers, relax, and listen to a great show. I love doing it.
Man, it changes your brain chemistry. I really believe that from both sides. Like I really miss playing shows, and now I'm like getting to go see a bunch of friends around here whose bands have started up or coming through town, and that's just, you know, it's a communion. It's a place. It's the closest that, you know, that I get to church. So it's really powerful to have that connection with people and to share things. And that's why I love playing music. And that's why, you know, I think most people who are doing it coming from the right place, that's why we're out here. And I think if anything I've learned from the past couple of years, it's like, man, I'm never taking any show for granted again. And it's hard to get out of your house. I'm the same way. Like it's hard to get out on a Thursday night and drive into town and see a show, but like you do that and then you feel different and you see people you wouldn't normally. You have these experiences. You want to feel things in a dark room and have that shared consciousness with people. So I get it. Like we're all competing against a lot. There's lots to listen to watch, to do. So you know, anytime someone decides to buy a ticket, come to show, I'm grateful. And I just try to do the same thing myself when I have days at home.
I do far too many things, but I definitely take my nights to relax or my weekends to relax or my trips where I do nothing but relax. But I don't necessarily count anymore, but I used to say like, I want to go do 5 big fun things a month, you know, and big fun things. We're going to go to the Belly Up down a little bit south here on the coast and watch, you know, whoever it is play. And, you know, I go to the symphony all the time in my hometown. Now, granted, I've got this great deal with the veteran ticket thing, So I
Cool.
get to go for a fairly small amount of money, but I also spread the love around. And I'm like, I got 4 tickets. They're $15 total. And
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you and you if you want to go, and so I do these things. I don't like hockey, but I like to go to hockey games. And so I try to do these things. And I'm good enough at it now that, I'll sit around for a couple of nights in a row, but then I got to have something planned. And I stay pretty busy doing that. And my life is deeply enriched by seeing, and you look at the things that I'm doing. I'm hockey, I'm symphony, I'm live band, comedy. And all of a sudden you realize that, Jesus, I'm just totally immersed in the arts at all times. That's why I'm like begging people to go out and do it, because it isn't that hard. And there's plenty of free things. Like if you can't afford it, there's probably music in the park somewhere,
Oh yeah. Like our city does a great outdoor concert festival that I think we're playing this year. And like, there's everywhere you look. And that's like, I think for people, it's easy to feel alone and to feel cut out from the world at times. And it's hard to make friends sometimes, and no matter where you are in life and what's going on. But like you said, immersing yourself in the arts, finding community, like these places, it's going to happen. If you keep showing up, you're going to find cool people.
Yeah. I had Dennis Kim in that chair right behind me there. And that man plays a $9 million violin. I mean, that's the other thing that happens is you all of a sudden start to get to know these people, because look, I'm just going to guess. I'm just taking a wild guess here. I bet you guys are completely approachable. That you love interacting with people that love your music and come to your shows. I'm just going to guess that you don't leave in a limousine 8 seconds after the gig is.
No, we leave in a beat up 2007 Ford Econoline van about 2 hours after we've settled our tab. And no, I love talking to people after shows. I talk to people during shows. Like I love that interaction, because we had our first show back last week, and we had some like really inappropriate heckling. And I don't mean inappropriate. Like, it was just these 2 women were saying some outrageous stuff. And so we were just laughing, and like, it became a thing, and the band just went with it. And, it's just like these moments catch you off guard that are totally unscripted. And after the show, anybody wants to come up and chat, and man, you get everything. You get people from all different, like, that's the biggest thing right now. It's like traveling. I have friends from all over the ideological and geographical country spectrum here. But I think like traveling around, playing music, like, or whatever your job is that helps you to travel, just meeting people from all different walks of life after a show, before a show, in different small towns or cities, like, it gives you really good perspective on this country and what everyone's going through. And that's something I have appreciated.
Let's do a quick roll call of the band, because I don't want to leave the other guys out. We got the Calloway brothers, and we mentioned David a little bit, but tell me one incredible thing about each of your bandmates.
Oh, that's a good challenge. So we have on guitar is Calloway Jones, and Calloway was first in the band when he was 16, and we would drag him out of high school to cover when we didn't have a bass player. And he played hard rock and metal. And then he eventually got out of college, and he's now such an integral part of the band. And he engineered our last record, and is just a monster guitar player with a high degree of self-deprecation. We have Dave Pinto on pedal steel and harmonica, and Dave is a jack of all trades. He's a draftsman. He is just a total character who I met maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and he used to live in Colorado for about 10 years. And now we just happened to cross paths while playing a Christmas show together, and didn't talk at the show, but then connected afterwards. And then on bass guitar, we have Niko Cvetanovich, and I knew his father actually from the local songwriter scene in town well before I knew him, and he was in punk bands and stuff. And Niko is just a shining ray of light. The guy is one of the easiest guys ever to have on the road. He's a huge dude, so nobody ever screws with us on the road, which is great. But totally a gentle giant. And then on drums, coming back, my brother started the band with me years ago, and then had to go to grad school, and life took different changes, and now it just happened to work out that he's back in the saddle. And so we've had our first gig together last week, and we're really excited about the tour we're putting together this year. And so it's just great to have just a real sense of kinship and brotherhood in both literal and figurative ways with this crew.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing the roll call, and it's just neat. Well, if you could add one instrument to the band reliably every night, what would you want to add?
Man, I think like keys or organ, like a great piano player. Like Little Feat is one of my favorite bands too.
Sure.
Like and like I just something along those lines would be cool, because I go from the approach, every time you add someone, that means everyone else has to play that much less in order for it to work. Like you can't just all be. And so I love like stopping to play in the middle of a song and like just hearing what the other guys are doing, just bringing my part out of it. And I think a great keys player would really help fit our sound and kind of help color what we're doing. So that would be on the wish list for Christmas shopping this year. Yeah.
Think about a band like Bon Jovi if there were no keys in it, and Brian wasn't up there. Just, what's his name, Brian? He just brings so much. But here's what he does the whole night. Like he just plays very simple things, repeated, but he adds that texture that Richie Sambora doesn't have to do. Yeah. It's incredible.
Creates like a blanket for everything else to sit on. That like you take it away, you notice it, but otherwise it's like, yeah.
One of my favorite notes in all of music is in Daryl Hall in Maneater. There's a point where someone just goes boo for like 2/3 of the song. It's just one long, like if you were to write it out, it would be like this rainbow going over the entire song. But it creates this and it's an invisible note. You don't even know it's there. But once you listen to Maneater, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that note creates danger, and it creates like, oh my God, do you know what I'm talking about? Have you heard that note?
I do. No, I'm a huge Hall & Oates fan, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, totally. It's a great example.
The first 30 seconds that you don't hear it, then you hear it for one part, then they lift the key, and then after that, the rest of the song, it's just down, and you're just like, wow, it's dangerous being on this city, these man-eater women out there.
Exactly. Like someone just put their elbow on the key and fell asleep there for a minute.
Right. I always say Daryl pulls out his change purse and just put it there, because you need your hand for other things, so probably something like that, grabs a mic stand and leans on that one key or something. Is there a note like that or something like that that stands out for you in your music or music in general?
That's a good question. I think it's like a lot of people would make fun of like Neil Young's single note solos, but then same thing, you hear them on a few songs and you're like, wow, like anyone can play like a lot of notes together, but like you're saying, one like a drone note or something like that really like catches your attention. Actually, Calloway, our guitarist, on one of our songs he'll do that for a solo, like because he loves to like try to crack me up on stage and play like kind of off or bad notes just to like, because he knows it'll irk me. And so like there'll be times we're screwing around and he'll just like play this one song. He keeps doing it out live. It's not recorded, but he'll just hit one note and stare at me while he's doing it again and again. But it does create this tension. So now it's got past the point of a joke that it's part of the song, which is cool.
Yeah. When you guys are taking turns singing songs, I don't want to say who's the best singer, because that's not what I'm going after, but what does each singer bring? Because there is responsibility in the show overall, but the fans get, and you're picking things, not just picking a set list when you've got 3 different singers.
Yeah. And it's, so Calloway's brother, Henry, he's helped form the band, and he has a song on this record too, but he's not touring with us. So we have there's 2 of us who are taking leads here and there. Calloway's some, and then we have some guys that sing backup vocals, but Calloway and I have very different voices. And so I think what's great is when he takes a song, it's a wake up call for the audience, because they'll hear my voice for 3 or 4 or 5 songs in a row.
Right.
And I think that I can speak to the songs I'm writing because I feel agency and connection to my work. Whereas Calloway can as well. And he comes from a deep blues background. He has a very deep bluesy voice, which is very different than my singing voice. And so I think it's like, the band, Little Feat, any of these groups you're talking about, where you see a live show and having someone else take a song, it's like the audience kind of takes notice for a second. It kind of shakes them out of their place. So I think, we offer very different things. And in the past, it's felt, it took us a little while to sort of figure out how to make that feel cohesive over a whole show. And I think now we've really figured out ways to do that.
And I guess what I'm also going for with this question is there a design emotionally as part of the ride? Okay, like, yes, I want it to be seamless, right? But because you do have this variety, are you making a choice like, no, now we're going to play this song, or maybe your set list is just evolved? Fucking maybe I'm going for the wrong thing, but it just seems like you would make a decision, to do that change of pace by design, because we just went through, this part of the emotional cycle.
Yeah, and part of it is like for some shows, like where if you have lighting cues tied in, if there are certain things that are dependent on the set list, we're like, I'm very conscious of sort of the emotional roller coaster you want to take people on. You want it to be a journey. You don't want to just like hit them in the face with loud rock the whole time. Like there needs to be some of that flow. But I think part of it is if there's not, we're not playing with the lighting designer or something, when we have more flexibility, then I often won't have a set list and I'll just play off the audience, which I like. It's like it's sort of that interaction. Like, okay, where are they right now? Let's play another, big rock song. Let's give them a break and play this song. So we sort of will read that on the fly, which makes it a more interactive set for us at times. And so it's, knowing whose songs will sort of speak to the moment or what song that'll be. It's sort of a fun challenge for us live.
So are you doing like a call, like you turn around and go tail lights, and then, you get clicked in and all of a sudden it's tail lights. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. It's and it, like it keeps us on our toes, and like you're playing a long tour and everyone's really dialed in, and it just makes it fun, and like people start doing weird stuff to kind of like mess with each other in a fun way on stage. Only we know we're doing, and so that it keeps it fresh, and no one gets burnt out playing the exact same set list night after night. Because that's what we're here, Like I said, we're not making $1 million a night, so let's try to have fun with it.
Try to have some fun with it. Yeah. You guys have 2 albums out. You must be working on a third.
Actually, we have 3 out. Actually, we put out first, and we have 15. The County was our first one in 2015, and then we have Through the Night in 2018, and then Transmission just came out this winter. And but it's funny you said that, because we've been working, we've been writing a lot, and so we probably have at least half or almost another album written of songs we haven't played out yet. And so that's what we're excited this summer, is to sort of tour behind Transmission, play a lot of those songs, but then start working these new ones, so that hopefully by like next winter or something, we can just sort of have a batch ready to go, and try to keep it moving, so it's not quite as long a delay between records.
Gotcha.
But sitting on a bunch.
Transmissions. And I didn't realize, I'm looking now on Spotify and I'm seeing that the album there. The 11 track formula, is that like your guys' sweet spot? Or could you put out an EP and just do 3 or 4 songs? I mean, it's changed so much where an album is kind of incentivized,
It's weird. It's twofold in that any publicist we've worked with or talked to, they're responsible. Like we can help push a single. EPs are kind of harder for us to push, and the album still has this like old school capital I industry around it that's easier to promote and get people to give you press and to review and to all that stuff. So that's something we've thought a lot about. We're very old school in our approach, which is probably for our detriment at certain points. But Spotify tells you they want artists to be putting out an EP every 3 months or something. Like they want constant engagement and constant. I think we may do something like that next, just to mix it up a little bit and not sort of have to bite down on a whole record after touring all this time. We may just throw out a single, or we haven't gotten that far, but I think we all think in terms of an album cycles, like what songs work together. Right. And it might be that we have these 4 that work together really well, and they're different from the rest. Maybe we'll be like, great, let's just do an EP. But we don't have a 5-year or 10-year plan or anything on how this is going to go. And we're just sort of riding it right now, and we'll see what happens probably come fall when we after we do the bulk of our touring and see where we're feeling.
This pace of production thing that's going on, and you guys I'm trying to figure it out. I do too many shows, right? But if you don't do a show, you don't exist, in my world. Right. Yeah. So I think there's 6 episodes this week, and if I can grab someone on Ukraine, we're going to have 7. It's just, you have to be busy. It doesn't mean that they're all good, and I don't mean that I'm putting out bad episodes, but it's like a song. Is that a filler song? Yeah, but we had to put a song out this week. Right. There's Pomplamoose is a great example of a modern band, and they crank songs out like crazy. But are they fully developed ideas? Do we even need that anymore? What are your thoughts?
Right. I think that's a really interesting point that to approach creatively. It's output versus the quality versus quantity, right? And whether you're, I think social media and streaming platforms tell us that you need to be on doing things all the time, constantly putting out content, constantly putting out songs. But I find just from my own people who do that, I kind of like, after a while, we'll just kind of tune them out. Whereas if it's like, you know, you see your favorite artist, they're in an album cycle, you start seeing them posting more stuff, their tour dates, and then they have a single that you're into and they have a video like that. I think I'm just, maybe I was just my age and who I am, but I'm not as like needing that constant stream from all my favorite people all the time. I think that's just, I personally just get exhausted and burnt out by that. So I think it's like, I like to choose my spots. Yeah. But like you said, is the album analogy is a good one. It's like you can't have, everyone can't be a number one hit. You're going to have the ballad. You're going to have a couple fillers here and there. And so I think that's, but we're being told to do that all the time. So I think it's really hard. And it's something I've talked a lot with other bands and other folks in the creative world about. It's like, how do you balance that? And because from a consumer angle, right? Like, I don't know how you approach that. Because when you're probably involved in so many different worlds and so many different things constantly, it's hard to like stay current and consume and be, you know, be as aware of everything you want to constantly. But and then you're trying to balance that with output. So that's it's tricky. Yeah,
it's hard, man. And you know, on my end of things, I get to talk to whoever I want to. I do entirely too many shows, but I just can't shut up. I love doing this and sort of consequent, because I also know my voice, right? And you guys know your voice. And so you're like, but that's my voice, but it has to be marketable. Well, how do I now? Next thing you know, you're spending 2/3 of your time focused on marketing and social media. And you're just like, I just want to go play some rock. Can I just go, can I, like Prince, can I play this guitar? And then exactly. Everybody stops what they're doing and they watch Prince play the goddamn guitar. And you're just like, can I just go play this guitar for a while, you know? And just, you know,
it's like
on TikTok. I mean, TikTok's fine, but I can't be on TikTok, Instagram, blah, 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 all these things.
No, it's, I mean, I just playing people like, I just want to be an artist. I don't want to do all this other crap. It's like, man, I didn't get into this to be a business person or to run a small business. Like, but if you're trying to make your art commercial, then like for me, I want to have control over things as much as I can. I want to know how the money comes in and out. I want to know what works and what doesn't. I want to know all of those things. And that's just part of me wanting to have control over stuff. But I think it's like, you know, there's so many more opportunities to do this now for all of us. Like, you know, but I think that that's a great thing, but it also comes with, you have to be your own marketing department at times. You have to be your own management at times. It's like, or else it just doesn't happen. And I'd rather do something that doesn't work than sit around bitching about it not happening. And that's just sort of how we've approached it.
And some of the times you got to, like just today, I did an agreement with a guy to work on some PR stuff because I just, I can't reliably do it good enough, often enough to make the PR thing work, you know? Yeah. So I'm going to have somebody else give a try and maybe I picked the right person. Maybe I didn't. I mean, I believe I did right now, but we won't know until after they do their PR thing. And so you have to like, take these leaps and, you know, it's just, but gosh, it's nothing about what I want to do, but it is about the business and trying to figure out which lever to pull and which pile of money to steal from to give to somebody else, you know?
Yeah. That's what's really interesting, whatever your medium is, podcast, albums, what have you, you know, it's the concepts and approach are very similar. And like, we've just been through all that. It's like, well, you know, and we got really lucky. We worked with a PR team who just has been absolutely kicking ass and have been fantastic to work with. And that was a gamble. You know, they took a gamble on us, we took a gamble on them, and we're both just really excited about the results. And but you never know. You just have to know, like, right, it's going to be a risk, but knowing who to trust, where to offload crap that you don't want to handle so you can actually produce the shit you need to anyway. So well, listen, I appreciate you coming on, and I just think the world of what you guys are doing at Lord Nelson. I love your solo stuff too. I was listening to that when we first were connected before we even started the show. Yeah. You guys are doing great things. And I hope that you're going to make a swing out to California so we can send people out your way, at least from my world immediately, you know. Yeah. But I just love it. What do you want to say about Lord Nelson? Talk us all into going to see a Lord Nelson show or buying an album. We won't be the best band you ever hear. We won't be the cleanest band you ever hear, but we're going to have a hell of a good time. We're going to make you enjoy it. Whether if you come in a bad mood, you're going to leave feeling better. And that's all we try to do, is we try to provide a moment of getting away from your life, from forgetting some shit for a bit. We're easy to hang with. We enjoy talking to y'all, and we're just going to keep driving around and playing shows until we can. And it's just what we all love doing more than anything. So we try to bring that to the stage whenever we can.
Everybody go check out Lord Nelson. Just type in Lord Nelson Band, and then you're going to see it. But then they got all of it there. They got music, they got merch, they got everything. And then if you're in the area where they're going to be touring, just go see it. Just go. And if not Lord Nelson, go see somebody this weekend. Go. It's a beautiful time of year, at least here in California. Yep. But go out and go see some bands live. All right. So stand by one second.
Yep.